are rampant. Demonic teachings, humanistic teachings are in abundance. If you have nothing to filter them out, then you are likely to be influenced or to be convinced or persuaded by them. That is why you need something to filter them out. You need something to expose them. And the way for us and the tool for us to use against false practices and teachings are none other than the teachings of the apostles. 2 Timothy in chapter 4, verses 3 and 4, it says here, the time will come when men will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. This is what we are seeing today. More and more people today are being lured away from the teachings and from the doctrines by false gospel, by teachings that are not biblical, by teachings that are not apostolic. Look around us. Just look at the kind of religious programs we are seeing today. Many of these things do not reflect teachings of the Bible and teachings of the apostles. No wonder here in our nation, the number of the followers and adherents of cults are increasing. It is a disturbing survey, it is a disturbing concept and observation na padami ng padami ngayon ang tagasunod ng maling relihiyon. Here in America, in this nation, as well as around the world, adherents and followers of false teachings and false churches are increasing. The reason is because many evangelical Christians today, many Protestant believers today are not being equipped in their minds and in their hearts with the correct teaching. Even though they have good intentions to serve the Lord. But if you have nothing to filter those rubbish, those garbage doctrines and teachings, then you are likely to believe them, because the traps and the schemes of the enemy is truly subtle and even effective. But thanks be to God, we will not fall to their schemes anymore, because we now know better. We now have the teachings of the apostles in the church. We have the true teachings of the Word of God. The more we stand fast, the more we are steadfast, like the early church in the teachings of the apostles, the more we will be armed, the more we will be equipped to push away the influence of false teachers and their false doctrines. The early church was able not just to survive, but to thrive in the midst of swirling influences of false teachings and doctrines. During their time, many teachers that were false were already popular and acceptable by people. But the church was able to rise above them and to conquer them because they held on to the teachings of the apostles. We will be vulnerable if we have nothing against these teachings, especially here in our nation, that false teachers and false churches have already managed to package themselves to become as acceptable as they can be to the people. Just look at their slick marketing. Just look at their system of influence. Look at how they saturate the airwaves. There is no time in the day that you open your television or look at the internet that their influence isn't there. That is why today there are many people who are falling victim to false teachers and to false teachings because they have nothing to filter them out. That's why today we must remain steadfast and we must remain devoted to the teachings of the apostles.
And speaking of apostolic doctrines and fellowshipping today, many are observing that this is what is sorely missing in many churches today. Many religious groups are into all these pursuits in the world, but they are missing the essentials. But thanks be to God, He has raised up a church where these apostolic practices and teachings and customs are constantly being done in our time. And it is good that you be part of the church that remains steadfast on the teachings of the apostles and to the fellowshipping of the saints. If you are looking for a church where you could grow spiritually, why don't you consider to join us here at the Pentecostal Missionary Church of Christ in the Fort Watch, and we are located here in the city of Gardena. And if you are one who is looking for some biblical answers, you're going through some trials and hardships in your life, why don't you call us right now? The numbers are now flashed in your screen. We are here to help you. We are here to minister to you. As you listen now to this segment of this program, why don't you pick up the phone and call us, and God will bring about healing, restoration, and breakthrough in your life right now. Sana po kayo ay tumawag ngayon at nais po naming paglingkuran kayo. Nais pong ibahagi namin sa inyo ang biyaya na nagmumula sa ating Panginoon. Again, thanks for joining us today. Until next time, God bless you.
Being in the church, I've realized that it's not simply just sitting down, listening to the preacher. Maybe just, following what the preacher is trying to say, doing good things. But I realized that being in the church is really trying to become a real disciple or a true disciple of Christ. And as I grow in my faith in this church, I really thank God because I really found out the truth of God's Word about how the early Christians devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to prayer, and the practices that they did before. And I could really see that in this church, that every single thing that they do is really biblical. And all the teachings that I've learned, I was discipled, I grew in the faith. Really, I could see that it's from the Bible. It's not simply man-made. They know what they're talking about. In this church, I really thank God because the words that we hear, the words that we accept, it's not just mere man, not from mere man, not from just the preacher's words, but of God's. And I really feel the presence of God every time I sit down and listen to His words, listen to the preacher. I know that I'm growing in my faith. Truly, to the teachings and through the doctrines of the church, I have learned to grow, to become a better child and a better servant of God.